What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, Joy-Con drift was back in the news after a photo started making the rounds very quickly online. A lot of you sent this to me, showing the inside of the Zelda Joy-Con controllers that just recently came out with an interesting change that maybe Nintendo made attempting to fix the drift. We'll go over that one here today. Also, we're going to be talking about Activision Blizzard once again, as it looks like the situation is getting worse as we have conflicting statements around that lawsuit from executives and what appears to be employee morale just absolutely plummeting. And we're going to be talking about Mortal Kombat, as it looks like it is now the best-selling fighting game franchise of all time. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Babylon's Fall. It showed up at E3 and didn't look the greatest, and all of a sudden, it's a live service game. Well, when they showed it off, the frame rate looked kind of off, the visuals didn't look that good, and people started even comparing it to like a PlayStation 3 game. But it looks like we are going to have a closed beta here coming up pretty soon from Platinum. We can head over here to VGC, where they say Platinum Games has confirmed its beta rollout plans for Babylon's Fall, the live service game published by Square Enix. Now, they do go on to say it will have a staggered launch per region, starting with Japan on July 29th, North America on August 5th, and Europe on August 12th. You can sign up for this now to take part in this closed beta. They do say that your character data that you make during this closed beta test, it won't be transferred over to the launch version of the game, and they also appear to have some sort of embargo in place so that you can't share any of the info or media that you may collect during this test. It's certainly something they're looking to do to try to iron out, I would say, any bugs or just get player feedback on this game. I don't know if the game's going to change that much from what they showed us at E3 as they head towards its release, but I'm hoping this closed beta can at least help them get some of this stuff figured out, because that is definitely a game that probably needs a closed beta. Also, we have a couple of good games coming out today. We had a few reviews drop yesterday. We're going to start with one of them, and we'll talk about the other one later on in the show here. We're going to start with Neo: The World Ends With You. We'll head over to Metacritic, and we can see it's currently sitting at an 83. It's also on the PlayStation 4, releasing today, and this is a big-time sequel that people have been waiting for with The World Ends With You. If we go down to the split, it currently has 13 positive, 2 mixed, and you can kind of look down some of the reviews here. We have a couple of hundreds dropping into the 90s, and then one of the lower ones that I saw was from IGN sitting at a 70, and it does seem that people who are big fans of this series are going to enjoy this game. A lot of the better reviews say that the art style is great, the music's good, the gameplay, the characters, all of that. And then I did notice some of the lower reviews mentioned that the game itself and its battle mechanics take some getting used to, and it can take upwards of 10, 12 hours for the game really to get moving. But I figured most people who liked The World Ends With You and have been waiting for a long time for this sequel to come out already sold on it anyway. Like, they don't need reviews to tell them if it's necessarily good or bad, because they want to see the story and the characters and what exactly happens going forward here with this series. So exciting stuff, though. Sitting at an 83, I'd say that's pretty good for the sequel. Oh, and we've kind of speculated from time to time on how Death Stranding did in terms of sales, because we've never really been told any sales numbers. Actually, Sony at times will brag about sales numbers. They've done it with things like Spider-Man or God of War, for example, but they didn't really mention Death Stranding at all after it came out, except for the occasional tweet here and there just to kind of promote it. But we do have a sales update for Death Stranding now. We head over here to gamesindustry.biz. This was confirmed from Kojima Productions. Death Stranding has sold 5 million copies on PS4 and PC. And this is, of course, ahead of that director's cut release that's coming up here pretty quick for the PlayStation 5. So it should sell even more copies there as we head along, now being on the PS4, PC, and PlayStation 5 there. And this was an interesting one to see the sales for, because I feel like 5 million may surprise a lot of people, although there was a lot of controversy around the game leading up to its release, then post-release for years now. It's not a game that everyone's going to be able to get into, but I have to say, for a game that's certainly way out there in terms of what it's trying to be, 5 million is actually pretty good. I assume Kojima is happy with that one, and there's been rumors that he's working now maybe with Microsoft for a cloud-based game. So who knows where Kojima goes from here, but obviously the director's cut for the PS5 is up next for Death Stranding, and we'll see how that does. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Joy-Con drift situation, because we did a video over the weekend kind of showing off VK's channel and their fix, where they put an extra piece of cardboard or foam or really anything that can act as a spacer between the plastic on the back of the Joy-Con and the analog stick itself, adding pressure, which then works to fix and correct any drifting you may have on that joystick. And it's been pretty successful for a lot of people online, so much so that it appears some are just opening their new Joy-Con controllers to just apply this fix now, so maybe they don't have to do it down the road. I don't know if I would go that far just yet, but hey, it's your Joy-Con. You can go ahead and drop some cardboard in there just in case if you want to do that now. But we can see this tweet here, and this is really what started to get this conversation going about Nintendo maybe already coming up with this fix just ahead of production for these Skyward Sword Joy-Cons. We can see this here. This is from Chicken Noodle Gamer saying, thanks to YouTuber VK, it's known that pressure to the back of a Joy-Con control stick stops drift. I opened my Zelda Joy-Cons and noticed strips. They're not in any Joy-Cons me or others have seen. Please share this post. It seems Nintendo fixed their biggest issue behind the scenes. And I mean, we can see the Zelda Joy-Con controller here opened up with two black foam strips, it looks like, both of which, when you close it up, would be situated behind that analog stick. Now, I went ahead and opened up my Zelda Joy-Con as well, and yeah, it is there. I also have two foam strips in that same spot. Now, I also thought to myself, well, maybe I'll check some other Joy-Con controllers that I have, because I haven't necessarily had drifting issues with all of my Joy-Cons because I don't use all of them as much, especially since I've been playing more and more docked, so using the Pro Controller. But I did open the orange Joy-Con controller from that purple and orange set, and wouldn't you know it, there's some foam strips in there as well. And this was from like a year or two ago when I picked these up. So it does appear that Nintendo's been adding foam strips for a while. I tweeted the image out for that, and more people came into like the replies there saying, yeah, I've had foam strips on some Joy-Cons I opened up years ago. It appears to be something Nintendo has been doing for some of their Joy-Con releases, and I kind of think it may have to do with which analog stick they are using, specifically because some of the backs of those analog sticks have like different designs, and the foam most likely is placed in there just to try to eliminate any like extra air gaps or anything that could cause rattle, for example, with that plastic. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that Nintendo would have just implemented this really ahead of the Zelda Skyward Sword Joy-Con controllers just before the pressure fix went up on YouTube. That'd be a really weird coincidence. And again, this just is something Nintendo has been doing. I don't even think those foam strips are like thick enough to create serious pressure anyway. So if you're already into the Joy-Con itself and you see those, you could still technically put like a square piece of cardboard or something there, because I just don't think these strips are making that big of a difference. I don't believe they're there and in place to create too much pressure, certainly not the amount that I was getting when I was trying to close the Joy-Con with that 1mm thick thermal pad. Like, you could see it when you were trying to close it, you had to really push down to get everything to lock into place and then screw it together. I don't get that same effect with these foam strips in there. So unfortunately, not necessarily something Nintendo has quietly done to fix the Joy-Con drift, something they've quietly done for years now because they have different analog stick variations and they just want to make sure everything is sealed up well enough to where you wouldn't accidentally get some kind of rattling in your Joy-Con. Next up, let's talk about the Activision Blizzard lawsuit that they are currently facing in California, because we have some responses from different executives through like their internal memo or email system where all the employees get the message and can kind of look through it. Let's head over here to Jason Schreier, who says, Blizzard President Jay Allen Brack sent an email to staff last night addressing the allegations from this week's explosive lawsuit, calling them extremely troubling and saying that he'd be meeting with many of you to answer questions and discuss how we can move forward. Okay, so that makes sense from a leadership role to say, okay, what can we do here? What's going on? Because it doesn't appear that, at least from what was written here, Jay Allen Brack was too aware of all of this stuff going on. But then we go to Activision Blizzard executive Fran Townsend, who had a bit of a different response, saying, as the executive sponsor of the ABK Employee Women's Network and our chief compliance officer, I wanted to reach out to you. I know this has been difficult for many of us. A recently filed lawsuit presented a distorted and untrue picture of our company, including factually incorrect, old, and out of context stories. Some from more than a decade ago. Now that message goes on further, basically to push back against the lawsuit and essentially kind of try to downplay a lot of it with some of the things I guess that they're doing and her point of view from where she is in the company. But doesn't appear that employees responded too favorably to that one, because if we take a look at this here over at Ars Technica, internal Activision Blizzard petition rebukes abhorrent insulting leadership. Day-old petition exceeds 1,000 signatures, follows ex-staffer's lawsuit reaction. The petition reads, "Our company executives have claimed that actions will be taken to protect us, but in the face of legal action and the troubling official responses that followed, we no longer trust that our leaders will place employee safety above their own interests. To claim this is a truly meritless and irresponsible lawsuit, while seeing so many current and former employees speak out about their own experiences regarding harassment and abuse, is simply unacceptable." Now, this petition was passed around apparently within the first hour, gaining nearly 1,000 signatures, with Jason Schreier and Kotaku sharing this out there. And I'm looking at this, Activision has 9,500 employees, so to get 1,000 signatures in roughly an hour or so, where there are still several people working from home, that's pretty quick. Obviously, people who are creating the games aren't agreeing with the people who are running the show as to how things really are at Activision Blizzard. So much so that it looks like, yeah, it is affecting the games now. Take a look at this. This over on Twitter, posted up by Jeff Hamilton, who is the senior system designer on Warcraft. "I find Activision's corporate response wholly unacceptable. I don't stand by it, any of it. It is evil to usurp a victim's story into a rhetorical bludgeon, and it is abhorrent to reply to these accusations with anything other than a well-thought-out plan to correct these abuses. I don't know what to do. I don't have all the answers. I can tell you, almost no work is being done on World of Warcraft right now while this obscenity plays out. And that benefits nobody, not the players, not the developers, not the shareholders." So we have executives with conflicting responses. One basically pushing back against that lawsuit. The other one saying, okay, well, we gotta get to the bottom of this, figure out what's going on here at this company, to the point where we're getting a lawsuit brought upon us by the state of California. After a 2-year investigation, you have 1,000 employees already signing a petition, pushing back against that executive response to the lawsuit. And then we hear stories about morale dropping off to the point where no work's even being done on some of these games like World of Warcraft, which, yes, then in turn, as is being pointed out here, would affect shareholders, which is what Activision really cares about. And yeah, if you work at Activision now or Blizzard, this is a tough situation to be a part of, because one, it's very conflicting in general. I see people online are saying you should quit your job, and I mean, come on, they're not going to leave their job because of this kind of stuff. They would rather maybe try to evoke change from within. But when you have people like Bobby Kotick, who's not even making a statement, by the way, which is just mind-blowing for this whole thing. If you're the leader at the top who's willing to take those $100-some-odd million bonuses, you can probably send out an internal email being a leader in general, you know? So it's not a great situation overall, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. I fully expect that petition to continue climbing in signatures, and could end up being half the company signing this petition, pushing back against how these executives are kind of responding to this lawsuit. So again, people are going to be following this. This is going to be something that's going to be brought up quite a bit, I'm sure, going forward as different things continue to happen here. Next up, let's talk about another game that is coming out today next to Neo: The World Ends With You, and we can head over to Metacritic here. This is The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, out on the Switch, PC, and PlayStation 4, and would you look at that? It currently has a score of an 87. Now, I'm not really into the Ace Attorney games at all, but I do know people who are. They were very excited for this one to release because it came out in Japan, like years ago, and it's finally making its way to the West on several different platforms, which is great to see. And sitting at an 87, you know what? That's pretty good. Actually, that makes it one of the higher rated games of the year. I think it's like 1 point behind Monster Hunter Rise even. And if we look down the scores, I mean, it has a ton in the hundreds, got 90s all over the place. If you look at the critic review split, 27 positive, 1 mixed, 0 negative. And it's funny because whenever I talk about like any of the Ace Attorney games, which I've tried playing back in the day on like the DS, and like I said, they were all right. They just didn't necessarily click with me completely because it's more visual novel with gameplay stuff thrown in, right? But like, this is one that a lot of people said, hey, you should try this out, give it another shot. And I might do that. I mean, it is, I think, a $40 game even, so it's not even like a $60 game like that at all. And really, Capcom's been on a roll. I mean, they've been releasing game after game after game that's been critically acclaimed, and this is just another one of those. So you know what? A lot of people, like I said, have been saying this. I will give it a try again. I'll see if I can get back into the Ace Attorney series with this one, and I can pick it up today alongside of Neo: The World Ends With You. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Mortal Kombat franchise in terms of sales, because we did have a sales update, and it looks like Mortal Kombat is the best-selling fighting game franchise of all time. We can head over here to Gematsu, where they say Mortal Kombat 11 sales top 12 million units. The total franchise sales crossed 73 million. And we do have Daniel Ahmed here kind of putting up a comparison of sales between different fighting games, with Mortal Kombat at the top at 73 million units, Smash Brothers at 65.1 million units. That was as of March 31st, 2021, to go alongside of Nintendo's report. Nintendo should have a report around the same time as Sony. I believe that's like next week, I think. So we'll have a bit of an update to the Smash Brothers numbers. I don't expect it to catch Mortal Kombat though there. Tekken at 51 million units, that as of April 2021. And then Street Fighter at 46 million units, that as of March 31st, 2021. Then we can see Daniel Ahmed follow that up saying Mortal Kombat was only recently surged to the #1 position thanks to the success of Mortal Kombat 10 and Mortal Kombat 11, both of which sold over 10 million units each, in addition to ongoing back catalog sales. If we go back a few years, and Smash Brothers was #1. Yeah, it sounds like the Mortal Kombat franchise is getting more and more popular, which is weird, because I remember Mortal Kombat was super popular back in the day, but like that was more around the controversy, not necessarily because it was this really good fighting game. It was a fun fighting game, but I don't think it was as technical as some others around it necessarily. It was just cool to do the fatalities and shock like your mom or somebody who was in the room at the time, and then get the game taken away from you. Or maybe you could pass the blood code around for the Genesis, but either way, it's really cool to see Mortal Kombat back at the top here, mostly because of the recent success of Mortal Kombat 11, which is a very good game overall. And I do wonder where the franchise will go from here, because it doesn't look like it's slowing down. Like I said, it looks like it's accelerating. And I assume the next thing up for NetherRealm will probably be something with Injustice, or maybe a new IP. Even at this point, they can do whatever they want. Maybe they'll play it safe and go with Mortal Kombat 12. Hard to say there. Either way though, really cool to see Mortal Kombat rolling along here in 2021. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, where are you currently playing third-party games? The Xbox Series and the Xbox One at 22%. That matches the PC at 22%, the Switch at 25%, and then the PlayStation 4 and 5 at 30%. Not too surprising there, considering the install size of the PlayStation 4, of course, to go along with the PS5, which is selling super fast right now. But the most surprising part about this poll is that Stadia got 1%. Like, it actually made a dent in the results. A little surprised about that one, but hats off to Stadia for that 1%. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from VGN Video Game Ninja saying, have to disagree with you there. Steam Deck looks much better, much more premium than Nintendo Switch. See, I see both of these devices as functional with their design. I don't really see either of them as premium. I mean, you can make the case for either one being more of the other, depending on, I guess, which one you think just looks better in your eyes. But like, I look at them as both saying, okay, we have the concept of the device. How do we now make the outer shell as cheap as possible? Plastic. Like that's, and they don't like really dress it up. So I don't really see either of them as like premium or pretty looking systems. I would say probably the most premium looking handheld we've had in a while now is the Vita. Like if you go back to 2011 and look at that original Vita with the OLED display, it looked really futuristic then. And you know what? I kind of feel like Sony could release it now and it would still fit in with 2021 like hardware, not necessarily like the specs, but like just the overall look and design of it. Sony really did try to dress that system up, whereas I look at the Switch and the Steam Deck and they figured out the internals and the concept and then kind of just made a functional outer shell for it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. If there was an Activision Blizzard lawsuit with 1,000 employees now already signing a petition pushing back against the executive response to that lawsuit. Let me know what you think about that one. And also, what about this Joy-Con drift situation? Those strips have already been there for a little while, but do you think Nintendo will make any kind of silent revision to the Joy-Con as we head through this generation to maybe combat that drift a bit more? And then what about Neo: The World Ends With You or the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles? Are you picking up either game today? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.